Sometimes the very thing that made you famous, the big, flashy, expensive venues, becomes the thing that drags you down when the economy shifts. Welcome back to another episode of the Elite Business Advice Podcast. My name's Chris Moore, the founder of Elite Business Advisors, your host for the podcast. The first time in almost 6 weeks, I'm just going to do a solo episode with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the sales series. I hope you enjoyed our conversation last week with Dan Fleischer from HireBus, all about AI and technology. I always love talking to him and chatting about that stuff. But today I got a fun one for you. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do a case study all about building sustainable businesses. And on today's, we've got what not to do. And the example is going to be about Topgolf. You probably know what Topgolf is. If you've been in a major city and you've driven by one, you can't miss it, right? Topgolf's the big, technology-driven driving range for golf fans and or amateurs or people that just want to go have a fun night out. You can hit golf balls, and there's different point systems you can do and make it like a fun game, right? So you probably know what it is. You probably maybe seen them before. But you might not really know what's going on behind the scenes. And this is where it gets interesting. And so I'm going to share some insight today into where they went wrong. But most importantly, how can we relate to this? What can you take away for it for your painting business? And if nothing else, this is probably going to make you feel pretty good about yourself, your business, and the decisions you've made along the way. And so here's my disclaimer. I'm not slandering Topgolf. I'm not defamating them. My attorney's not making me put this in there. Maybe I should have ran this by him. But this is just to share an example of what the reality is and how you can take some things away from this case study of their journey and apply it into your painting company. So I hope it helps. Thanks for plugging in. This is the Elite Business Advice Podcast. All right. So here's a quick backstory on Topgolf. 2019, their revenue hit $1.1 billion. Their locations were growing 30% year over year. Okay, this was, I'm not saying Topgolf was not new, but it was definitely newer, and it was really in its peak of, is what you'll see is kind of their growth journey and the success behind it. And of course, sometimes when things are going well, people tend to double, triple, quadruple down on it and make it go just that much greater. Okay, and after COVID, whatever time period you want to put on some of that, demand was continuing to explode, right? So if we just say 2020 to 2023, whatever term you want to use in there during those years, demand was exploding because people wanted safe outdoor entertainment, right? Now you can put air quotes on a lot of that, and we're just going to let that go. But they wanted to go to a place where they go have fun, but they were outside, there's the whole germ thing. People were still kind of being unsure about how that was going to go. And so Topgolf continued to boom, right? Because they weren't confined to indoor. They didn't have to worry as much about max capacities and all this other stuff because it was an outdoor facility that have, heaters and fans and stuff to kind of weather the different seasons. So from 2019, 2023, they opened 10 new locations a year, which may not seem like much. It might be 10 a year across the country. That's not a lot. But the problem is every venue they built cost anywhere between $15 to $40 million to build. Your $1,600 sprayer is not sounding so bad right now, is it? The biggest issue with this is a lot of this was built upon borrowed money. Insert problem number one, in my opinion. So they're opening 10 new locations a year. They're expanding to new cities. And what I didn't understand, and this to me was truthfully the red flag about Topgolf, was when they put a second location in St. Louis. Now, granted, the first location is kind of on the western suburbs of St. Louis. So the St. Louis is about an hour from the west side of St. Louis suburbs to the east side, give or take. Hour and 10 minutes, depending on where you're at. So just to kind of give you that perspective, it's not 2 hours, right? Maybe the middle of rush hour traffic, it's an hour and a half on a bad day. 2 hours, obviously, if something catastrophic happens, the interstate shut down. But we're talking an hour, right? So, if you take downtown St. Louis, right in the middle of that, it's 15, 20 minutes west of downtown, okay? And then all of a sudden they decide to put another location in right here near downtown St. Louis. which was convenient for us coming from Illinois that live on the eastern 15 minutes of that hour window. But it kind of made me really wonder, like, is the demand that great for Topgolf that it makes sense for them to put like another $15 to $40 million, I don't know what the one in St. Louis was, the second one, into building another facility? Like, that to me was the red flag of, like, if I'm going to want to go to Topgolf, like, I will drive out to Chesterfield to go play Topgolf. Like, I didn't really understand it. And then all of a sudden things start changing. Okay. So I see that locally here in St. Louis. I can't imagine other stores around the country. But since 2023, sales have dropped 10% year over year, right? So they're 30% going up. Now we're 10% going down. Profits have dropped 67% last quarter, and they're projecting an overall 6 to 12% decline in sales for the foreseeable future. Okay, that's not a good spot to be at. What that is we got really big, we wanted to get even bigger, and we kind of blew it. Okay, that's pretty much the synopsis here. And again, I'm not saying this in a like slanderish way. I don't mean anything negative towards this, but like if you look back on the journey, I would argue probably people at Topgolf can look back and like, yeah, no, we probably should have approached that differently, right? And everything's always easy in hindsight to look back on. It's super easy to do that. It's never easy to see it in the moment. In the moment, you think you're making the right decisions. Again, still questioning the second St. Louis location, but I'm going to get off that high horse here in a second. And so the problem here was people went back to other forms of entertainment. You know, the average visit, the average cost to go to a Topgolf can be kind of expensive, right? Because they do it like an hourly, rental for the bay. And so depending on how many of you there are, and it depends on how long you're there, food, drinks, like everything, it can kind of add up, right? Well, when wages aren't, increasing at high rates, but inflation has, and interest rates and everything, I'm sure Topgolf's prices have went up because of their overhead situation. It can be kind of expensive to go have a night out there. Not always. It can be, some people look at Topgolf as like a one and done thing. Like, I did it once, right? My wife's not a golfer. She doesn't love it. She'll go to Topgolf if there's a whole group of us. But like, unless like we're out on a date and she wants to like go do something she knows that I'll enjoy, like she's never like, I want to go to Topgolf, right? The biggest issue is, again, they took out a lot of debt to build these venues. They did it at a time where interest rates were lower. Guess what? Interest rates have kind of crept up over the last 3 years. And so that debt is a lot more expensive now than it was when those decisions were made. Something you always have to kind of keep in mind unless you're locked into a fixed rate, situation, which most business debt isn't nearly as much the way like a house mortgage might be, or, an auto loan or something. And then the biggest problem, and this is where we're going to start kind of piggybacking into how does this apply to you, cheaper competitors popped up for a fraction of the cost. And if you think about that, there's some smaller facilities being built. One that's going to be coming near our house pretty soon. That is, it's a smaller version of Topgolf. It's not nearly as extravagant, but it's apparently has some really cool stuff to it. It's become very popular in the one city they built one in. There's another one coming near us. And I guarantee you it did not cost $15 million to build. And the fun factor is still very similar, right? And I don't know what they charge for it. That's a whole different conversation. But like, cheaper competitors are coming up at a fraction of the cost. So that's a concern as well, right? And apparently still popping up, right? One of the things that they said was kind of like the competitor was like, indoor golf simulators, right? Was kind of another option for it. And I don't even think like, although that's gone crazy, but again, the things I'm talking about, the two here and on the east side of St. Louis, they're both just smaller versions of Topgolf. Okay, so like it's still happening even in 2025. Like these venues are popping up. I'm kind of curious on the longevity of some of those. So what are they doing about it? Okay, you've heard the story. You've heard kind of the problem where they went wrong. What are they actually doing about it? Number one, they're slowing their venue expansion. So apparently they're still expanding to some degree. They're just slowing that down a lot. Okay, maybe new markets, you can make up some of the revenue and stuff. Maybe they're scaling back the size of the venues. Maybe they're scaling back the cost of the venues. But one of the biggest things they've really had to do is start rolling out kind of value programs to lure back price-sensitive customers, right? I know when I was in Charlotte, Shane Fast from Renew Painting of the Carolinas drove out to spend some time together. And we went to Topgolf because it was something easy we could hang out and talk about. And I think we just happened to go there on a day that it was like 50% off. Like, I don't know if it's Tuesdays or something, it's like 50% off. It's like, great. Like, we didn't go there intentionally because of it, but they're, now lowering their prices and lowering their margins just to try to stay busy, right? And obviously for them, golf is one thing, the food, the drinks are the other thing, but they're still doing it, right? And I saw this line when I was reading an article doing some research on some of this, and I feel like this really hits home, and then I'm going to talk about how does this apply into your painting company. But it said, sometimes the very thing that made you famous, the big, flashy, expensive venues, becomes the thing that drags you down when the economy shifts. And I think it's a perfect segue into the journey about your painting company. Sometimes we think that the big, flashy, sexy things are the best things that we need for our brand or for our business, or the new trucks or the big elaborate shop, or the expensive softwares that we can afford, or all the things might eventually become the thing that starts to cause problems if something shifts in the economy and you have to start making pricing decisions and playing the volume game versus the margin game, right? And I always say this, not one overhead decision will make or break your business usually, right? Buying one vehicle on a $500 a month payment won't single-handedly make or break your business, but 7 to 10 of those decisions add up, and it puts pressure on what your top line number has to be at your gross margin to support the overhead that you're building. Okay, so keep that in mind. And so as we talk about how does this apply to your painting company, I want you to think about this. I got 4 things for you here. Number 1, what got you here won't get you there. I said that on a call this morning to somebody in a totally different context. But the 2 points on this thought is what got you here won't get you there is, number 1, sometimes a trend or a fad isn't always going to continue on. I know it's still really popular. I'm really glad because a lot of our clients are doing a lot of it still. But I've been kind of cautious about kitchen cabinet painting, refinishing, whatever you want to call it, for a handful of years now. And I'm glad that some of our clients have pivoted to a more diverse business model that's not 100% focused on cabinet painting, because we're already seeing a trend shift. Because guess what? Cabinet staining is back in, right? Restaining and toning and all that stuff is coming back in. I don't know who makes up the trends. I don't know if there's like some secret group at the top that like makes up what's trendy, but it's just like trends evolve, right? I don't know who's in charge of it. It just is what happens, right? And so if you've built a lot of success on cabinet painting and cabinet refinishing, that's great. But let's just be aware of what can shift around us when trends shift, buying habits shift, budgets shift. We have to be prepared for those things. And Topgolf doesn't seem like they were. Right? Or maybe they thought they were going to be by the time it shifted, and it shifted way quicker than they thought. Again, it's easy to look back in hindsight in that. At this point, I'm just hoping not to get sued by Topgolf or get a cease and desist about this podcast episode. I feel like I'm throwing enough disclaimers in here to make their legal team happy, but who knows? I might even just be honored that executives at Topgolf find out about this episode. That might be worth it. But number 2, the second thing with that, what got you here won't get you there, is the knowledge and skill set it took to get you here may not get you where you need to go. Maybe the skill set and the knowledge and the leadership and the vision and the organizational structure that got Topgolf to 1.1 billion in that height of demand, maybe that wasn't what was meant to take them from 1.1 billion to the 2, 3, 4 billion they were shooting for. Sometimes we're here for a season. And sometimes we have to have an honest conversation of like, do we have what it takes to go do more? Or do we need to stay where we're at and enjoy the successes and fruits of our labor here? And I'm not saying greed is a thing of it, but sometimes greed plays a role with ego, and that can be a deadly combination. Next one, number 2, shiny and flashy isn't always great. Yes, the size of these venues needed to be pretty big, but they're pretty dang fancy, right? If you're a modern person, you like new things, you love the look of Topgolfs. They're appealing. There's LED lights and the way it's lit up and just like the outside exterior structure. It's pretty cool. But I'm sure that pretty cool came with a pretty nice price tag. And guess what? That's going to cause them to charge what they do, which causes problems on demand. It's like this whole thing, right? The design of these places, like how could they have scaled it back? And instead of 15 to 40 million, it was 5 to 20 million. I'm sure that would have made a game change of difference in what they have to do with their pricing because of that, and their debt load and their balance sheet and the interest rates. but instead they went pretty big with it. And obviously some of these smaller venues popping up again, it might be a little bit less. It might not be quite as cool, but I guarantee it still gets the job done, right? And clearly they figured out how to have people hit golf balls on a little bit smaller venue. And so, how does that relate to you guys? Well, number one, the nicer the truck you buy, the more you have to charge your customers for the paint job. Now, maybe not quite in theory. I'm not saying go buy a piece of crap truck so that you can keep your prices cheap, but like in some degree, again, as I mentioned, the overhead conversation, the more overhead that accumulates, the more it puts pressure on you, either in the volume you have to do to make the money to cover the overhead, or at the price point you have to do to cover the overhead, right? We took all of our clients out at the residential conference last week for dinner. We had like 14 of them there, which is cool. We had like more than 10% of the attendees were EBA clients. It was awesome. And we went out to dinner. I was told everybody, I'm like, hey, I'm buying dinner for you guys. Grab drinks, get what you want. Please don't make me have to get rid of my kids' college fund, but just like don't skimp and just get French fries and a salad or whatever. Like get whatever you want. We're going to dinner. Thankfully, they were all cheap dates. But one of them after was like, hey man, like thanks so much for like dinner. Like you really didn't have to do that. And I was like, listen, we want to take care of our people. Like it's fine. And I was like, you guys give us a lot of referrals. You guys support us. And I was like, and honestly, I was like, because we don't spend $20,000 a month on like Facebook ads and Google ads to try to like grow and support our business, like I'd much rather invest that money into the clients that are giving us referrals and taking care of us. Oh, and by the way, I don't have to raise our prices because I don't have to find a way to offset 20 grand in Facebook ads, right? Like it all connects together in no matter what business you're in. Other point on this one is, the fanciness, the size of things, the overhead, like it's fine when it works. It's good when it's good. It's bad when it's bad, right? So maybe having all the overhead and the huge office that you don't really need and all the cool stuff and going on all the trips and doing all the conferences and all the events and all this stuff's great when it's great. What if things pull back? What if things shift, right? We never know what the next 5 years holds. I'm not saying it's going to be terrible. I'm not saying it's going to be bad. I'm not saying you should be worried, but I think you should be aware. I think you shouldn't put your business in a spot that is risky, that opens it up to liability 5 years down the road. All right, point number 3, 2 more. Got to be aware of your competition. Got to be aware of your competition, right? Topgolf somehow should have known that cheaper alternatives were going to compete in some way, shape, or form. They may not have known what they were, did they have the technology, but like, was there something that was going to come along that was going to start to compete against them, that people are going to have to make decisions, and that it might be cheaper because they didn't spend $40 million to build out a venue. Because I look at it like this: if I can have 80% of the fun and 50% of the price, as a consumer, I'm going to take it every time. And it's not just I'm a tightwad, because I'm not. I like to be financially responsible, but like if something can give me just about the same amount of fun for half the price, like I'm in every time. So my question to you is, what markets do you need to keep an eye on that might impact your business? If you're in the residential repaint space, the common one is when new construction slows down, new construction and new construction painting demand slows down, those painters come into the residential repaint market, which now you're competing against guys that are used to charging half of probably what you do. Now, granted, there's the value proposition and everything else, and the quality and the cleanliness of it because they're not used to doing res repaint. But like that is a very common trend. When new construction slows, new construction painting slows, and most of those painters find their way coming into the res repaint market either as contractors or as employees. Every time it happens. I've seen it twice already. When new construction slowed a lot, they all came into the repaint market. All of a sudden people are like, man, I can't sell work because everybody's underbidding me by half the price. Yep, well, this is why, and this is what happened, and this is how you solve this, right? So the question here too is, how do you keep up competitively and profitably if you have to find ways to lower prices to stay busy like Topgolf is? Let's say that happens. Let's say new construction in the U.S., I don't see this happening, but let's just say it comes to a screeching halt. And all of a sudden, all these new construction painters flood the res repaint market. And you got to figure out, how do we stay competitive at a cheaper price point? Because that's where the market's going to go. I'm not saying this is going to happen. But how do you stay competitive? How do you stay relevant? How do you do things now to protect that if-then situation? And don't just go, yeah, we'll worry about that when we get there. No. But it might be nice to have like $300K in the bank just in case you got to run at a loss for a little bit for 6 months. I don't know. Crazier things have happened, but like I'd rather find out how to solve a problem with money than without it. So what can we do now to prepare? Something to think about. If you think about this, like Topgolf is in a very similar situation that you are in the painting industry. And I think this is where this like relevancy comes home. And obviously I love golf. It was kind of fun for me. I hope you enjoyed it too. I don't care either way. It was fun for me, but they're in a very similar like price demand curve, if you will, right? That is, demand increases, you can increase the price you charge. And eventually there's like an equilibrium point. There's a whole nother story to that. But like the point being is like Topgolf, if there's a ton of demand and there's people constantly waiting and they're turning people away because they got to wait 2 hours to get in to get a bay, like they can raise those prices and maximize what they're doing, and it'll kind of throttle out the demand a little bit. And it's very similar to your business in the painting industry. You're on the same demand price curve you are. If you're booked out 12 weeks, you can afford to raise your prices 10 or 20% because you don't need the work necessarily. You'll get enough to stay busy and you'll find an equilibrium point as well. So if demand slows, your price might have to slow a little bit too. Not always, but sometimes. Lastly, point number 4. I saved, in my opinion, the most important one for last. Don't build on debt. Don't build your business on debt. And I'm not talking about a line of credit or utilizing credit cards for rewards. I mean 100% taking out debt to try to build and scale your business. Unfortunately, what I see more times than not is debt being taken out to survive on because bad decisions were made, or we didn't have a path, or we tried something that didn't work, whatever it is, right? Or sometimes it's like, hey, our line of credit's maxed out. Now we got to take out this loan just to refinance it because the credit payment's killing us. And sometimes 6 months later, you find yourself in the same boat again unless you're able to draw a line and get a new game plan. But I mean, don't go take out a loan just to have capital to try to scale and grow your business on, right? A lot of people are like, I've got a nice little bonfire going here. It's going to be great. I'm just going to dump some gas on it and get like a $100K loan and just go blow up marketing and have about a year's salary for a project manager and do all this stuff. And that's going to help me just go from here to there. And I'm not saying it couldn't, but what I'm saying is it works a lot less than it works a lot less often than when it works. I think I said that right. So don't be risky with it. Those debt payments might cripple your business because it's going to force you to scale your volume, maybe at discounted prices, just to try to get by. And in my opinion, if you have a good enough business model, if you have a good enough plan, if you're a good enough leader and you're willing to delay your gratification, you don't need the debt anyways. You're going to get there one way or the other. You're just going to do it in a little bit of a healthier, less stressful way versus just taking out this loan and trying to 3x, 10x your business in 1 year and hope that you're the leader and manager and implementer to support it all on that journey. There's a whole lot that goes into that. It's not always about needing the money to do it. It's about having the intelligence, the leadership, and the discipline to know when's the time to do it. So with that being said, I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed kind of a case study, trying to apply it into your business. I try to bring different, relevant, fresh perspectives to get some points home in your business. And I thought this would be a good way to kind of recap a few different topics here. And so remember, slow and steady wins the race. It might not always be sexy. It might not always be the best way ever to do, I think it is the best way ever. It might not be the most attractive way to do something, but case study after case study will show in every different type of business, and especially in this painting industry, I have so many data points for this argument. It's not even funny. Grow sustainably, grow profitably, delay your gratification, and don't make it about the top line numbers. Make it about the bottom line profit. I hope you enjoyed that episode and were able to take away a few nuggets to implement into your business. If you loved this episode, please leave us a rating and a review. It helps others on the platform find our podcast, and it could be the best blessing that's ever happened to them thanks to you. We at Elite Business Advisors are a huge supporter of the PCA, the Painting Contractors Association. If you're not familiar with the PCA and all of the benefits of membership, I highly recommend you check it out at www.painted.org. That's PAINTED.org. It looks like painted. And last but not least, if you're looking for an outsider's perspective as you navigate growth, schedule a free business analysis meeting with us at www.elitebusinessadvisors.com. We work with painting contractors all over North America to help them treat their business like a business. Our entire team of advisors all have experience in owning and running a painting company, so you aren't just getting a team that is teaching off of theory, but tried and true application of principles and systems. Thanks so much for listening in today. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you back next week.